Hi, I'm Claire and welcome to Genrewise, news from the world of SFF. I'm recording on June 10th and today we are going to start by looking at awards news, then we'll move on to books, fandom news, then film and TV news, and finally real life news. For every item that I'm talking about, I'm going to link extra information and more in-depth articles in the description box below, so you can always check there for further reading. First up in awards news, we have winners for the 2018 Nebula Awards. The Nebulas recognize the best works of science fiction or fantasy published in the US, and they are awarded by the SFWA, a professional organization for SFF writers. And professional writers are also the ones voting in the Nebulas, so it's always interesting to see what they select. This year's winners include Mary Robinette Kowal, Aliette de Bodard, Brooke Bolander, and P. Clark, all of whom are also Hugo Awards finalists this year, so again, this is going to be interesting. The African Speculative Fiction Society has announced the finalists for the 2019 NOMO Awards for Best Speculative Fiction by an African. All the works shortlisted were nominated by ASFS members, and they fall in 4 fiction categories: novel, novella, short story, and graphic novel. Link to the shortlists are down below if you want to check them out. We've also got nominees for the 5th annual Dwayne McDuffie Award for Kids Comics, which recognize excellent middle grade and young teen comics, judging them on quality, timelessness, originality, and diversity. The shortlist features 10 books, including Hidden Witch by Molly Knox Ostertag, The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang, and Lumberjane, The Infernal Compass by Lila Sturges and Poulter Inc. Finally, we've got a winner for the 2018 self-published fantasy blog-off. Congratulations to J. Zachary Pike, who won with Orconomics, as well as Barbara Kloss and Devin Madsen for nabbing 2nd and 3rd place respectively. Now that the 2018 awards are over, organizer Mark Lawrence has published guidelines for SPFBO 5, which will start officially on July 1st, 2019. So if you're interested in entering a self-published fantasy novel, check out his website linked down below, and do not send anything in before the official opening date. First up in books, the Folio Society will be publishing collector's editions of all the books in the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin, starting with, of course, A Game of Thrones. That one comes out on July 16th, 2019. These editions will be cloth-bound hardbacks with illustrations by Jonathan Burton. As ever with Folio Society editions, these books are quite expensive. It is £125 just for Game of Thrones. I've never spent this much on a book before, but let me tell you, I am sorely tempted because it looks exquisite. Next in special editions, Image Comics and Barnes & Noble have announced a deluxe hardcover edition collecting the first 3 volumes of Monsters by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. This edition will also feature additional artwork and a collection of 12 pull-out postcards by artist Sana Takeda. Now this is a exclusive release from Barnes & Noble, but I would also check with your local comic book store if you have one that you like near you, whether they can get it for you, because I'm a bit uncomfortable with the idea that like a big chain is taking away customers from local comic book stores that struggle to stay open, so I would check with your local comic book store if you have one that you like. Tor.com Publishing have announced another exciting debut novella coming in late 2020. The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Ni Vo is all about empire, storytelling, and the anger of women. We follow a young royal from the far north who is sent south for a political marriage, and we witness her rise to power as seen through the eyes of one of her handmaidens. The blurb calls it feminist high fantasy and a thrilling indictment of monarchy all at once. I am super up for that. The 5th book in Shauna Maguire's Wayward Children series, Come Tumbling Down, now has a blurb and a cover. This book will focus on Jack, who we met in the 1st book, Every Heart a Doorway, and whose story got fleshed out in book 2, Down Among the Sticks and Bones. Now, a warning, if you haven't read Every Heart a Doorway, then tread carefully with the blurb for Come Tumbling Down on Goodreads and such, because it does have some spoilers for that 1st book. I couldn't find who had designed that cover, but Come Tumbling Down will be out on January 7th, 2020. Next, we've got a whole bunch of cover reveals, starting with Sisters of the Vast Black, the upcoming novella about space nuns that I mentioned in a previous episode. We've now got a simple but very impactful cover for it, with art and design by Drive Communication. The book will be out on October 29th from Tor.com Publishing. We've also got a cover for The Secret Commonwealth, The Book of Dust Volume 2 by Philip Pullman, which should be out on October 3rd of this year. The cover illustration is by Chris Wormel, and I really love this vintage travel poster look that it has. If you check the link to the bookseller article that I've got in the description box below, you'll be able to see more details about the plot of The Secret Commonwealth, and I guess where it picks up from book 1, as well as some events that Philip Pullman is doing for the launch of the book in London and in Oxford. Now, I haven't looked at the article myself in too much detail because I haven't read the first book and I want to read it at some point, so I wanted to avoid spoilers, so sorry if this one's a bit vague. Tor Books have just revealed the US cover for The Last Emperor, the final book in John Scalzi's Interdependency series. This cover art is by Sparth, but that's not the one that I'm going to be getting. There should be a different cover for the UK edition, which is the one that I've been collecting. No news on that front quite yet though. And The Last Emperor will be out in April 2020. Also out in April 2020 from Tor Books, and also now with a gorgeous cover, we have The Glass Magician, a romantic fantasy by Caroline Stevermer. This stunning cover illustration is by Chris Gibbs and the design is by Esther S. Kim. And finally, in books, Unbeatable Squirrel Girl will be ending later this year with issue number 50. The creative team behind the Eisner Award-winning comic book series made it clear that this was not a cancellation, not something that came from on high, but it was instead a creative decision to wrap up the series at this point because they'd told the story that they wanted to tell. A decision like this is always going to leave fans a little bit bittersweet, but I would always prefer to see a story end where it makes narrative sense rather than getting dragged on forever. Next up is fandom news, starting with this really cool Kickstarter campaign that's raising money to produce enamel pins featuring some of our favorite fanfic tropes, from hurt comfort and fake dating to slow burn and mutual pining. Completely unsurprisingly, this campaign was fully funded within about an hour and a half of going live, and it's already blown past all of its stretch goals. There are only a couple days left to get yourself some pins. If you want them, I know I got some. Next, I've got an update on the fandom survey on shipping that I mentioned a couple of episodes ago. The survey has now closed after garnering close to 17,000 responses, which is just incredible. The folks at Fansplaining who organised this survey have now got to work analysing the results, and they've gotten really interesting insights from this data. They've done podcast episodes about it, they've written about it, there's some really cool data visualization that you can see, and all of it is linked down below. First up in film and TV news, I'm sure by now everyone has seen the new Wonder Woman 1984 poster revealed to tease one full year until the movie actually comes out. The poster is gloriously colourful and features Diana in her new armour, and since we're getting it as a treat to make up for Wonder Woman's absence from San Diego Comic-Con, there is really not much else to say. Wonder Woman's a badass and the 80s were very colourful, and that's it, that's the news. Next up, AMC have ordered a sci-fi romance anthology from Black Mirror writer Will Bridges and writer and actor Brett Goldstein. The 6-episode series will explore what it means when everyone can find their soulmate by way of technical innovations. Kind of vague. I am not really sure how to feel about it because I love soulmate tropes in fanfic, and I think it's most interesting when it examines how different society would be if soulmates were assigned by tech or magic, but it's also a trope that's very, very easy to get wrong, and it veers into creepy so quickly. But then again, Will Bridges did write the episode USS Callister, so he's clearly interested in digging into issues about consent and free will and all of that, so who knows? It might be great, it might be kind of terrible. Next up, good news for DS9 fans. We have a DVD and Blu-ray release date for the crowdfunded documentary What We Left Behind, looking back at Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which was co-produced and co-directed by original showrunner Ira Steven Behr and David Zappone. This is a full-length documentary featuring extensive interviews and behind-the-scenes stories with the original cast and crew, as well as the original writing staff imagining a hypothetical future episode of Deep Space Nine. So if that's your thing, the DVD and Blu-ray come out on August 6th and you can pre-order it from now. We've also got quite a few new trailers, so in case you've missed any of them, you can check out links down below to the teaser for CBS All Access's upcoming series, Star Trek Picard, the trailer for season 5 of horror anthology Black Mirror, the first trailer for the new Batwoman movie featuring Ruby Rose, as well as the Terminator Dark Fate trailer, and a new trailer for the upcoming His Dark Materials adaptation. Whew, that was a lot of trailers and I did that in one take. Speaking of His Dark Materials, we've just had pretty exciting casting news. The series has found its Will Parry and he'll be played by Amir Wilson. I continue to be extremely hyped for this show. I cannot wait for this kid and Daphne Keane to give me all the feels in the world. And finally, in more Bittersweet news, The Good Place will be ending after season 4. Showrunner Mike Schur made the announcement earlier this week and explained that he didn't want to tread water by extending the show past the runtime that felt narratively right. Like I mentioned earlier in this episode, I firmly believe this kind of decision is good. It's good for the show. Ultimately, it's going to be good for us viewers. It's a bit sad, of course, but I do trust the people making this show. I've no doubt it's going to work storytelling-wise. No, my heart. Moving on to real life news, the release date for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie has been pushed back to 2020. If you'll recall, after the first trailer came out featuring Sonic with buff legs and pointy teeth, the internet's reaction was very much, what the actual fork? At that point, the studio promised to change the design, but they didn't push the movie back at that time, and a lot of people were worried that this would mean a lot of overtime and crunch time work, generally not great working condition for the VFX artists working on the movie who probably didn't decide to make the Sonic design this weird in the first place. So it's really good to hear that there will be a delayed release, since that will actually give the visual effect team more time to improve the design without working tons of overtime. And now the new release date is February 14th, 2020, because Sonic is like a romantic Valentine's Day movie. Please tell me I'm not the only one as confused by this choice of a new release date. And finally, some extremely cool scientific news all the way from Australia. Some researchers have found dinosaur bones encrusted with opal, and it turns out that these bones belong to a whole new species of dinosaur. Apparently these bones were discovered several decades ago and are now finally being studied properly for the first time. I guess they didn't expect them to be a whole new species of dinosaur, but they are, which is very cool. There is an article linked in the description box below. I didn't feel very confident going into the full science-ness of it, but you know, go check out the cool dinosaurs. So that's it, this was Genrewise. I hope you enjoyed it, and please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Are you gonna order yourself some trophy pins? Are you excited about His Dark Materials, all the trailers, all the casting announcements? And how do you feel about Unbeatable Squirrel Girl and The Good Place ending? Is it the right time? Is it too early? These are important questions and I want to know your answers. If you like the show, please share it around. I work really hard on it and I'd love for as many people as possible to see it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me again in a couple of weeks for more science fiction, fantasy, and fandom news. If you'd like to see more from me, you can check out a previous video on screen right now. And if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button that's on my face for a new video from me every week. I've been Claire, thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.